As you can see, I put up on the screen a quote from T.S. Eliot. Only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far they can go. These words from Eliot invite us to imagine boldly, to risk stepping beyond that which is comfortable for the sake of something truer, deeper, more just. Today, as we turn to the words of Jesus in Matthew's gospel, we might find ourselves challenged to live to a new way of living in a world that's structured around greed, accumulation, and anxiety. I invite you now to listen and dwell the words of this ancient teaching.
The reading this morning is from Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 24. Stop collecting treasures for your own benefit on earth, where moth and rust eat them, and where thieves break in and steal them. Instead, collect treasures for yourself in heaven, where moth and rust don't eat them, and where thieves don't break in and steal them. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. Therefore, if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how terrible that darkness will be. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be loyal to the one and have contempt for the other. You cannot serve God and wealth.
There's an old Sufi story about a doll made entirely of salt who's wandering the earth in search of meaning. Now, it came one day that this doll ended up at the ocean. And the doll was amazed. "Who are you?" it asked. "I am the sea," replied the water. "I wish to know what sea is." "Then step into me," said the sea. The doll hesitated. How could it possibly enter without losing itself? But at last it placed one foot into the waves, and immediately it began to dissolve. "What's happening to me?" cried the doll. "You are becoming a part of me," the sea responded. The doll stepped deeper and blended into the ocean. And when it did, it whispered, "Now I know what I am." As we gather today, I think we're all a little bit like that salt doll. We're shaped by our shared histories, by our communal identities, and by the stories that we carry. And we tend to move through life thinking that it's our solidness or our independence that defines us. But what we're not realizing when we live that way is that finding our truest selves comes from letting go, from dissolving just enough to be joined with something greater. This is the paradox of letting go. The more we dissolve into love, the more we dissolve into the sacred, the more we dissolve into the web of life, the more we discover our deepest truth. As we look at our text for today, it's kind of asking us metaphorically to step into that ocean. In the brilliance and the shadow of these words, we encounter not just poetic wisdom, but a radical call to re-examine what holds value in our lives. It challenges us to dissolve into the ocean of what could be if we were to move from the solidness of self-interest into the unity of a greater whole. No one can serve two masters, Jesus says. You cannot serve God and wealth. Maybe think of it like this. Wealth is the heart of self-interest. Now, don't get me wrong here. That doesn't mean being wealthy in and of itself is a bad thing. But it's how we use our wealth and the societal privilege that it provides that matters. In other words, it's our responsibility to use the resources that God has given us. How? Well, within God's great economy, we're invited to confront and work for change. Change to the systems and structures that prioritize profit over people, accumulation over compassion, and scarcity over generosity. Economic justice, then, isn't some abstract ideal. It's a living pulse, the living pulse of God's vision for humanity, a pulse beating for equality and dignity and restoration. Because you see, God's economy isn't driven by market forces and bottom lines, but rather by abundance, freely given and generously shared. It's a system where everybody has enough, where the hungry are fed, the oppressed are liberated, the marginalized are welcomed. It doesn't maintain the status quo, but instead it transforms it, disrupts it. But pursuing economic justice means asking ourselves some uncomfortable questions. Questions like, who benefits from the current system? Who doesn't? And maybe most importantly, how might we redistribute not only material resources, but community? Real, authentic, loving, and affirming community. How do we connect, really connect, with all people? And it's when we open ourselves to this ideal of interconnectedness that we begin to see with healthy eyes. And so it is with healthy eyes that we see the image of God in every neighbor. It's with healthy eyes that we detect and oppose injustice. It is with healthy eyes that we continue to look for grace. And may our vision, this shared vision, move us to advocate for living wages and affordable housing. May it lead us to be champions for fair access to health care and education. And may we, with clear eyes and with faith in our hearts, see the face of Christ in the face of the stranger, the refugee, the immigrant. And when we do this, my friends, when we connect on this deeper level with all people, we become stewards and we become sharers of God's unending light. Now, I've been dancing around this symbolism of light and darkness and the eye a little bit. So let's dig into this a little more because it's pretty interesting here. Matthew writes in this text, the eye is the lamp of the body. Therefore, if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. If your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how terrible that darkness will be. Now, this particular imagery challenges our modern assumptions because there's a contextual difference here. You see, in ancient times, people believed that the eye was more like a lamp, projecting our innermost selves, our inner light, outward, rather than being more like a window with light coming in. Plato described the eyes as containing a gentle fire that illuminated the world. And it's within this same framework that we encounter Matthew today. He suggests that our inner light is unclear, especially regarding property and money. And if that's so, then our life and faith may also lack clarity. In other words, where your heart is, there your treasure will be also. So the eye, according to this line of thought, is not simply an organ that perceives, but rather it's a lens through which we share our innermost selves. And if our vision is clouded by greed or fear or indifference, if we are held captive by the myth that our worth lies in how many possessions we have, then we will send out only darkness rather than our God-inspired inner light. Now I'm going to leave you with this today. It's a quote from the great Taoist teacher Lao Tzu, and it goes like this. When I let go of who I am, I become what I might be. When I let go of who I am, I become what I might be. If we, my friends, as a people, as a community, and as a nation, let go of our attachment to the accumulation of more and more and yet more. If we as a people, and as a community, and as a nation, let go of our solidness, our rigidity, and begin to dissolve into the ocean of being. If we as a people, as a community, and as a nation, begin to let go of our hatred of the other, whoever that other might be, then we as a people, as a community, and as a nation, might just to begin to discover our most valuable treasure of all, loving one another as God has loved us. And perhaps, that's where our treasure lies. Amen.
Amen.